back to another episode of Sean's Allotment Garden. The weather's been quite wet and we've had a bit of snow, but not too much that it hasn't stopped us doing seed sowing. So, like I said last week, today I want to get on with some sweet peas. So, for the last 24 hours, I've had the peas in water, and like I said last week, putting them into water just helps soften the hard skin, the hard shell around the sweet pea. So just take those out. Now you can sow sweet peas up until March, and then in April you can then put them outside. But if you do them at this time of year, then they'll be a bit stronger and you can create a bit more of a bush. Now I'm planting them in these plastic things which are called root trainers. I've used these for the last 3 years, so they're a bit battered and bruised at the moment. But what you do is you put them into this device here, and then when the plant is ready to be planted out, you just simply pop them open and you can lift the whole plant out without disturbing the roots. You can use these for runner beans as well as sweet peas. So there we go, you just squeeze them all in like that, and then just fill them up with compost. This compost is John Innes. So just scrape off the excess and then just slightly press the soil down so that it fills all the tunnel, and then just put some more soil on top. Make sure that they're all full, not to the brim but close enough to the top. Now like I said, I'm not going to sow the whole lot today. I'll just sow about 4 rows. So there we go. Now to sow sweet peas, it's really easy. All you do is just pop your little finger in and put the seed in, and then just bring the soil back over it. Now I like to sow sweet peas in single pots. Sometimes if you buy them from the shop, you end up getting about 6 on the one pot, which is all well and good, but if you want to try and do a wigwam or something, then you can't separate the flowers. And I don't really go for this thing where it's like where people say, oh, you put 2 seeds to a pot and then you take out the weakest one. Well, that's just wasting seed, isn't it? So I like to put singles, and if a seed doesn't come up, just doesn't come up, I'll put another seed in there. There you go. Just give them a quick dust in. And there we have it, our sweet peas. Don't forget to put the label on. And let's look forward to some nice, tall, scented flowers in the summer. Now, something I tried last year, which I was really impressed by, was strawberries. Now, not strawberries from plants, but strawberries from a seed. When I put the seed in, I thought, right, I'm not going to see anything for this year, but I was pleasantly surprised. There was these really tiny, delicious strawberries, and it was a really good crop, and I've still got the plant in the garden at the moment, so I'm going to sow some more this year. So I'll just fill a pot up with some good quality compost, and this seed is strawberry woodland. Now because I can feel that the seed hasn't got its own compartment, I'm just going to gently open the seed packet over the pot, because I can feel that the seed is right at the top here. I know if I had a scissors it would be easier. but I don't. So, and the seed is really tiny on this one. So I'll open up the whole packet and see if you can see. You can just about make out the seed in there. And all I'm going to do with this is just gently tap a few seeds all over the pot. The majority of them are stuck to the packet inside, so I'm just going to, there you go, just brush the rest of the seed in there. Like so, and then give it a bit of compost on top, not too much. Put a label on it, and then I will put the whole pot into a tray of water for about half an hour, and then just water it as you would. I'm actually going to leave the plants in here for the rest of the season, so make sure that you have a decent sized pot to put them in. The potatoes have arrived. It's too early to put them in the ground, so what I'm going to do is something that we call chitting. Now the varieties that I've got this year, I've only grown 2 varieties this year, is Maris Piper and Swift. Swift is an early potato and Maris Piper is a main crop. So I'll be harvesting these a lot sooner than I'll be harvesting these ones. So the first thing, because the ground isn't ready, I'm going to do something called chitting. And what that means is we will let the potatoes stand between now and say 3rd week in February, depending on what the weather's like. And what we want is nice stumpy shoots from the eyes of the potato. So how do we achieve that? Well, it's starting to get colder now. Apparently we're having a bit of snow over the weekend, so we need to get something like this. This is a mushroom box, and all you do is simple, is you just place the potatoes in the box with the eyes facing upwards. Now if you have any egg boxes, it's a lot easier to put them in the egg boxes, but the one thing that you must do with these is place them in a frost-free environment, so in the shed or in the garage, as long as you don't get any frost. If you do get frost, what happens is the potato looks very damp. Now that happened to me a few years ago, and I did get a good crop of potatoes, but I didn't get an excellent crop. But what I did was I took all the potatoes out and I basically put them in the sun for the rest of the day to try and dry them out, and it worked to some extent, but obviously best thing is to not get frost in the first place. So I'm just going to put them all into this container, and don't forget to put a label on top, and then we will leave them in the frost-free shed, which is where we are. And if there is a fear of frost like there is tomorrow night, we're going to be -5 tomorrow night, what you do is get some fleece. Get some fleece or get some bubble wrap, and if there's a risk of frost, then just put a few layers of bubble wrap on top. What you can do if you want to is, if you are really concerned about the frost, you can actually put them on the bottom like that and store your potatoes as such. But if you do that, then you might create some condensation, which is even worse for the potatoes. So whatever you put on top, you will have to come down in the morning and take that off. Obviously, if it's going to be -5 for the whole of the day, leave it on, but don't leave it on too soon, because they do need to have sunlight. because if you keep your potatoes in the dark, they'll start to sprout, but the sprouts will be long, thin things, and we want nice, dumpy sprouts so we can plant them later in the season. I'm not the only one on site today. Geoff is also here, and he's preparing his land ready for sowing his potatoes in March. So what's going on in this bed, Geoff?
Oh, well, this is a bed I had brassicas in, and we've eaten a lot, and so I'm turning the bed over. I'm going to plant a couple of rows of potatoes in this particular bed.
Do you know what type of potatoes?
Yes, these are going to be Desiree, as these grow particularly well on this allotment site.
Because you had some really big potatoes a few years ago, didn't you?
Oh yes, some of them coming up like small rugby balls.
You better start to cook that tonight and it'll be ready by Tuesday.
Brilliant, isn't it? I've had some funny shaped ones, but takes a biscuit, that thing.
The next day, Geoff and I headed off to the garden centre to see what potatoes they had on offer. It was quite busy compared to the last time. In this garden centre, they have a system where you pay per bag, so it's up to you how many you can cram into one bag.
That's all I need.
Having only planned to buy one variety of potatoes, Geoff came away with 3. So it was back to the allotment to prepare another bed for potatoes to be sown in March. In cold, damp weather, it's best to stay off the soil, so Geoff uses a floorboard across the bed and works from that. The latest gardening fad is to grow microgreens, and I've got 3 varieties: Rocket Victoria, broccoli and basil. Now, do you remember in school when you had cress and you put the kitchen paper and you made the kitchen paper damp and then you put seed on top? Well, this is a similar thing. So I'm going to be sowing broccoli, and you can do this at any time of the year. It's just a case of just putting your seed on top and then making sure the compost is damp. And according to the packet, we will be picking these in only a few weeks. Now, you're not going to get huge vegetables. The idea is that the sprouts come up and then you cut the sprouts and you eat those sprouts in a salad. So it would be nice to taste some fresh vegetables again. So that's the first one that I've done. That is the broccoli, and that will be ready to eat in 1 to 3 weeks. Now, it's quite cold at the moment, so I'm guessing this will be ready in 3 weeks. So it'll be something we can follow up on later on in the series. The rhubarb is starting to show itself through the ground, but I've had these crowns for a few years now, so I think it's about time that I planted some new ones. This variety is called Champagne, and I'm planting this within the vegetable garden. Dig a hole. In the bottom of the hole, put some manure, then put the crown in, cover with soil, and then put a liberal amount of manure on top and water that in. Now, in the first year, I'll only remove 1 or 2 stalks. I'll leave the rest there because I want to bulk up the plant for the following years. So far, we haven't had a lot of snow, but friend of the show, Jonathan Wallace up in Gateshead, has had a downpour in the last few days, and it's been an exciting time for his chickens and ducks exploring the new environment.
Snow certainly hasn't stopped them from eating. Well, just as the hens don't like the rain or the snow, it seems to be the opposite way around with the ducks.
A link to this video can be found at the end of this episode. Back on the allotment, the temperature dipped, so I thought it was time for the first bonfire of the year. A friend of mine dropped off some slabstones. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do with them at the moment, so it's just a case of storing them and coming up with an idea later in the season. It's certainly going to be frosty tonight. The temperature at the moment, and it's only about 4:30, it's 3.2, so it's definitely going to be cold. So I'm in the shed, I've put the light on. I've got a solar panelled light in there. I've had it for about 2-3 years, and it seems to be, obviously at the moment, is running off the battery, and then the solar panel charges up throughout the day. But for what I use it, which is mostly during the winter, I tend to come down for about 2 or 3 hours during the evenings if I'm doing seeding or whatever, and it stays on. It's an energy saving light bulb which is connected to a light switch that you'd normally get in the house, and that is connected to this leisure battery which you would normally use for caravans, and then that is topped up by any sunshine that we get, which is through the solar panel. It just got a bit too cold out there, so I've come indoors trying to get the old coal fire started, not having much luck at the moment. But anyway, this weekend I'll be reading this book, Keeping Bees in Towns and Cities by Luke Dixon. If you've read this book, I'll be interested to find out what you think about it, so put your comments in the comment section below. Also, talking about the comments, I'll be interested to find out whether you chit your potatoes or not. So this week's question is, to chit or not to chit? What do you think? Put your comments in the comment section below. Well, that's all from this week. Maybe next week we'll have a downpour of snow similar to Jonathan in Gateshead. I'll see you next time.
Yes, they really are quite confused by all of this. Yeah, give them the rest.